Golf Central on YouTube, brought to you by the Rogue ST Woods and Irons from Callaway.
And hi again, everyone. I'm Jimmy Roberts, and this is your Golf Central update. The DP World Tour is in Scotland this week for the Alfred Dunhill Links Championship, hosted by 3 courses as players rotate between the Old Course, Carnoustie, and Kings Barnes. It's also a Pro-Am. Bill Murray among the celebrities who will play. 2016, Masters champion Danny Willett is the defending champion. And how about this from today? This is Rory McIlroy back at the Old Course for a practice round, 18th hole, 356 yards. Remember at the Open, he parred the hole, finished 2 back of the winner, Cam Smith. Well, today, playing with his dad, Jerry, good player, low single digit at Seminole, drove the green. And then Rory, who's finished runner-up here 3 times, what does he do? Yup, of course he does. He makes the eagle putt, and you know he had to be thinking, sure, now I make the eagle on 18 at St. Andrews. McIlroy now second in the official world golf rankings, looking at his last 9 worldwide starts, a win in Canada back in June, outlasting Justin Thomas and Tony Finau. Of course, the win at Eastlake for the FedEx Cup, and since then, finished tied for second at the BMW PGA Championship and 4th at the Italian Open. All right, pleased now to welcome in Jamie Weir. And Jamie, let's start with something that Rory said off camera, but seems pretty significant. In response to questions about working with LIV Golf, he said, "I've always said I think there's a time and a place for everyone that's involved here should sit down and try and work together." McIlroy noted that's very hard right now with 2 lawsuits pending, but he also lamented that the game was ripping itself apart. He later went on to say, "I don't think we can let it go too much longer, so I'm all for everyone sitting around the table and trying to figure something out." So, Jamie, am I reading this wrong, or is this some kind of a wow moment? Rory's always been, pretty civil about his position, but very militant in his support of the PGA Tour's position.
I think Rory remains very militant in his support of the PGA Tour. However, I think there's an increasing realization from a lot of golfers now that there probably needs to be a compromise at some point. I think that compromise is going to be very difficult when you've got somebody like Greg Norman at the helm of LIV, who seems hell-bent on destroying the PGA Tour and pretty stubborn and not willing to cede much ground. I also think the PGA Tour are in an incredible position of strength at the moment, so I don't think they necessarily need to come to the negotiating table. But yeah, no, Rory today saying that perhaps an olive branch should be extended. He was also pretty vocal on the situation with the world ranking points, saying that, it's daft to have Dustin Johnson ranked as the number 100 player in the world, that there needs to be some world ranking points, but you've got to meet those criteria. And at the moment, LIV Golf is falling far short of those criteria.
All right, let's just make sure we've got the present facts straight, because presently Dustin Johnson is number 23 in the world, but without many more world ranking points to be earned, he could be headed in that position. All right, 17 LIV golfers played at the BMW PGA Championship at Wentworth a few weeks ago. Not as many in the field this week, despite the purse and the potential for those very valuable world ranking points. That's kind of surprising, no?
Yeah, perhaps. I mean, the BMW PGA Championship at Wentworth is the flagship event on the European Tour. It's easily accessible in terms of players from your side of the pond flying into London and getting down to Wentworth. It was played in balmy temperatures a few weeks ago. I can tell you outside at the moment, it's not that balmy. There's a lot of layers being worn this week. There's a lot of woolly hats and snoods on display. The conditions are going to be brutal this week, especially on Friday. So perhaps for some players, that puts them off making the trip across the pond, making the trip across the Atlantic to play in the Dunhill. But as you said, there's still plenty of players in the field. And a lot of those players, it has to be said, are here to support Johan Rupert, especially the South African players, who's the person that puts on this wonderful week that everybody seems to enjoy so much. So that might explain some of it. But there certainly seems, I was at Wentworth 2 weeks ago, and there was a real needle in the air. There was a lot of them and us a couple of weeks ago at Wentworth. It doesn't seem that is the case this week as much. There seems to be a lot more friendliness. This is a tournament which, is a fun week for all the players and for all their guests as well. Everybody I've been speaking to has got a smile from ear to ear. They seem determined to just enjoy the week. And there's certainly not that same sort of animosity that I saw at Wentworth a couple of weeks ago.
I don't know how anybody could be at St. Andrews and not be smiling ear to ear, I should say. All right, As far as the competition itself, McIlroy returning to the old course, obviously a big story this week. What else are you watching for this week?
Look, as you say, Rory, there's got to be a little bit of scar tissue there. There's got to be a few regrets when he takes out onto those fairways and just thinks of what might have been a couple of months ago. I was standing at the back of the 18th today when he drove the 18th green and then just casually rolled in an eagle putt, and he just turned around and said, if only I'd done that a couple of months ago. And I think that echoed the thoughts of a lot of people who saw that. It wasn't to be for Rory that day. I spoke to him a little bit earlier on. He come very close in this tournament to winning it alongside his dad, Jerry. And he says this week for him, it's far more important winning the team competition than it is winning the individual competition. Spoke to Matt Fitzpatrick, who echoed those sentiments. He's playing alongside his mum, Sue. And he says if he could win that, those are just memories that are made for a lifetime. So, look, it is, as I said, a fun week. Obviously, these guys are competitive beasts. And if they get into the heat of the battle come Sunday afternoon, they're determined to win the tournament. But players it's a chance to unwind, a chance to relax a bit. We're approaching the end of the European Tour season. Rory McIlroy currently sitting number one in the rankings as well. So he'll be determined to sort of strengthen that position. And I suppose the other thing is the ongoing, and look, I know it's still 12 months away, but we've just started Ryder Cup qualification over here in Europe. The first three winners of events in those qualifications are Shane Lowry, Bob McIntyre and Guido Migliozzi, which I'm sure Lee Donald would be delighted to have all three of those players on his team 12 months from now. But, the cream is rising to the top already, even with 12 months to go. And you know what? We all watched the President's Cup at the weekend. We think you Americans might be fallible. You're maybe not as unbeatable as we thought 12 months ago at Whistling Straits.
It is never too early to start talking about the Ryder Cup. All right, you mentioned it. McIlroy has played well recently. So has Matthew Fitzpatrick. Shane Lowry won at Wentworth a few weeks ago. Robbie McIntyre, you mentioned it, the Italian Open, and recently he'll be one of the fan favorites, of course, there. If you were a betting man, is there anybody in the field you might want to drop a few pounds on this week? What do you think?
Oh, my word, you put me on the spot there. I mean, Rory is playing the golf of his life. He said that today, that elusive fifth major may be missing from 2022. But apart from that, the numbers suggest he's playing the best golf of his career so far. I spoke to Shane Lowry earlier on today, who loves his links golf, who obviously has that monkey off his back from a couple of weeks ago at Wentworth. He said that one of the overwhelming emotions at Wentworth was relief because he's played so well this year and been knocking on the door and hasn't quite managed to get a tournament over the line. Shane has got a pretty good record around here in the Dunhill Links as well. But look, the man who I think you'd be putting good money on if you wanted to have a little flutter would be Tyrrell Hatton. He's won twice here back-to-back. He very nearly made it three in a row. He just dropped a couple of shots coming down the stretch. He was in contention again last year as well. So there's something about these three links courses, the Old Course, Kingsbarns and Carnoustie, and this time of year, which clearly brings out the best in Tyrrell. So if you want to have a little flutter, you can't look any further than Tyrrell Hatton, I would say.
What a special event. Kind of reminds us of what Pebble Beach is here, as you say, on this side of the pond. Jamie Weir from Sky Sports, thanks for joining us. I can tell
you though, Jimmy, that Fife in September is not quite the same as California in February. That's the one big difference.
Okay, point well taken. Point well taken. Jamie Weir, thanks for joining us.
Take care.